Hello and welcome back to Toronto Til I Die, the Toronto FC fan show. We're in Leagues Cup mode. And this entire week, you'd think TFC would be able to stay out of the headlines. Yeah, right. Come on. This is bad TFC. And bad TFC, of all things, knows how to make headlines when it's not about them. On this week's show, we're going to visit the Michael Singh notebook, talk trades, transfer rumors, all that good stuff you guys want to talk about, preview TFC's group in the Leagues Cup, and of course, get to your comments from this week's burning question presented by Nextdoor. We have a lot to dig into in today's show. So let's bring in my esteemed co-host, Jeffrey P. Nesker and Michael Singh. Gentlemen, how are you doing? How were your week, your TFC free weekends? How did they go?
A lot more time on my hands, eh?
Exactly.
A lot more time on my hands.
Not so depressing at the end of it.
I forget when that Messi free kick was.
That was Friday night.
Friday night,
yeah.
So started the weekend off on such an incredible note. I mean, we were talking about Messi last week. We were saying, will he be able to do it? Will he not be able to do it? Will, it help Miami? Will he be able to help Miami along with Busquets? And now we know for sure Jordi Alba has joined that team as well. You guys were kind of skeptical.
Whoa.
Whoa.
I wasn't skeptical. I knew he'd be great. I didn't know the team would be
No. Yeah, the team. So my question is, do you think, has that changed your perspective at all? Has that swayed you one way or another? Do you think Messi, Jordi Alba, Busquets, plus the young initiative signings, U22 initiative signings coming in, do you think that Miami team has a bit more magic still left in them?
I still need to see it in MLS. Like a cup game's great. Look, in that was great. I mean, their goalkeeper had to make a ton of saves to keep them in that game before Messi had to come in and do Messi things. But yeah, we'll see. I'm not swayed here or there. My whole thing last week was I'm not sure what this is going to be yet. And Friday night did not exactly tip the scale one way or the other for me as of yet.
Jeff, you?
I mean, I enjoyed it. The conspiracy tinfoil hats about whether or not that was scripted or reality aside, I want to enjoy that it was reality. It was a wonderful moment, like let's as I'm fond of saying, let's give MLS their flowers. Like they kind of pulled it off. If they could figure out how to do a decent sound mix, then they'd be really cooking. But baby steps. Small sample size, guys. What are you going to do? It was a great game, thoroughly enjoyable. But I'm remiss Busquets looked good, man. That to me was the big surprise. Busquets, he's a silky footballer, man. He looked really good.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was storybook, right? Everything about it when he won the free kick, 93rd minute. I think everybody thought this is somehow, some way going to find the back of the net. I know we think that a lot in certain scenarios like that, but with Messi, I don't know. It felt a little bit different. And then when he proceeded to do it, the reaction, the celebrations, his
Were
teammates.
you really that surprised, though? I mean, like, that's a penalty for him, essentially, especially the where exactly it was. It was like, there's at least an 8 out of 10 chances going.
Honestly, it isn't that high. Like, it still is a free kick that you have to hit from outside the box. I know Messi's probably better at it than most players in the world, but even Sebastian Javenko at times when he had free kicks in those situations, he didn't always find the back of the net. We know how good Seba is at free kicks.
Yeah.
By the way, shout out Martin for that amazing.
Oh, that thread was
Seba
so
thread.
fantastic. It's so, I mean, all the member berries. It's funny that you mentioned Seba because it had that kind of inevitability. Like one of my favorite Seba things was that whenever he went up for a free kick and we're all singing Seven Nation Army, 8% chance shot, 2% chance shot. It was a 99% chance shot in our hearts. And it had that same feeling. It had that same feeling of inevitability. Do you know what I mean? And far be it for me to compare Messi to Sebastian Giovinco. I mean, I just did it. But like it did. It had that feeling of inevitability. And that's why there was a part of me that kind of knew it was going to go in.
Yeah, it was. I mean, if anything, like it's a lot of fun right now. Inter Miami is like must watch, must tune in. I want to say TV, but it's like must tune in streaming service. Um, I can't wait for the next game. I think it's tomorrow against Atlanta United, if I'm not mistaken. That's the
Yeah.
last game in their group.
Yeah.
So,
Captain
yeah,
Messi.
that should be fun. Yeah, right away getting the captain's armband. I can't really argue with it, right?
I mean, is it getting old? A little bit of it is getting old to me in terms of like it's Major League Soccer, not Messi League Soccer, and it's starting to feel. I mean, granted, we're still in the first gasp of it, but I don't want this to decide how the league works moving forward. I mean, it's bad enough that the MLS website you have to comb through about 40. You have to scroll down 100,000 yards to get to anything about anybody other than Messi, and yeah, I mean, there's a cutoff for me where this starts to get old really, really.
Oh, I'm already
really
there.
Fast.
I'm kind of already
I mean,
there.
Cutting to him when the game was being played, forget about the sound mix, but cutting to him sitting in his little racing gamer chair while actual soccer is getting played. I've never seen that before. I've never ever seen that before. I mean, I was getting incensed by the end of it because cutting to coaches on the sidelines is bad enough, but cutting to a guy on the bench, it's a little wonky.
Yeah, I mean it's Major League Soccer. Like, that's what more can you say? That look, they got to milk this for what it's worth, considering what they have conceded to get him here. Yeah, you're gonna have to do it. But I'm kind of tired of it already. Like, just not necessarily that he's here. Like, obviously, look, you want to see him here and performing magic and things like that. But like, he doesn't play for my team, so I don't care. Like, at the end of the day, I'm probably in the minority in that scenario, and that's completely fine. But he doesn't play for my club, so I mean, nice for the league. But
Mike's an Inter Miami fan now.
I have a confession.
All right.
I forked out. Hold on. I forked out a ton of money and got a Messi Inter Miami kit.
You really got an Inter Miami kit?
I got a Lionel Messi Inter Miami kit.
Gross. You're off the show.
I might join you because, if Victor Vasquez gets moved to Inter Miami to play with his buddy Leo for one last kick at the can, I'm going to be the guy that bought 2 Victor Vasquez kits in the same year. So disgusting. I might very well be there with you. I said this to Alicia, like, I have never liked that pink collared Inter Miami kit. But seeing it with the 10 Messi on the back immediately made it a million times better. There's just something about.
Sorry, I want to hear like what the people think. Like, is that offside by me? Like,
it's 100% offside. You don't have to go to the people. You just go to me. It's offside. I
don't think it's offside.
No, you cannot wear a Messi shirt. I don't give a shit. You cannot wear a Messi shirt.
I wouldn't wear it to a TFC game.
So
I don't know. I don't even know if I'm gonna wear it. It's one of those things where I think I'm just gonna like frame it.
Look at it. Frame it and look at it.
I'm all about, like, I'm not going out there wearing other MLS teams' kits. Period. I don't care who's playing for them.
What if I don't wear it?
Not how it works. That's just not how it works, man. No.
You're gonna wear it. Of course,
I'll be interested to see what the comments say. Let's make this a running commentary.
No, there's a lot of sing out hashtags going on right now,
right? Like, I'm sorry,
like people would just do that anyways, though.
Oh, I'm sure there's regardless. But I mean, like, come on, man. Nah, that's foul. Foul. I call a foul. Like, I call fouls all day. No way. You can't.
Okay, we'll put a poll out there. Let's see if this is.
We'll put a poll out there. Look out for it on Blue Sky.
I think if there's one player, one exception that you can make to get a jersey, it's Lionel Messi.
Cesc Fabregas. Wait, what were you saying? Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's not because I'm rooting for Inter Miami or anything like that. It's just this moment of him joining Major League Soccer is so historic and so incredible. So like, I'm not a Inter Miami fan. I'm a big Messi fan. I can appreciate someone who's great at the game, but I'm also a big Major League Soccer fan. I'm a big proponent of, growing Major League Soccer as a whole. So, for me, this moment, I look at it and I'm like, man, this is something we're going to remember in 50
100%
years, right?
Okay, so for remember in 50 years, you don't have to buy the jersey to remember it.
Maybe
Yeah,
maybe he's a mimetic learner and he needs to see the jersey to remember. Maybe that's the way his
it's
mind
also like
works.
it's not like a CF
Yeah.
Montreal jersey too. This is an
Yeah,
Inter
yeah,
Miami.
that's a
They're an Eastern Conference rival who could leapfrog us and leave us last in the East. I'm sorry. No.
Mhm.
Offline, offside. I don't care. Messi doesn't get a pass. Look, I'm a big fan of Major League Soccer. I want it to actually grow and get better. I'm
I
a
love
big
this.
fan of like the idea that you can bring in
I
a
don't
player
believe you
like
till you
that.
get a
But
Messi
no,
kit.
absolutely not. No. I mean, I get it. Some people will do that, but not a chance. Not a chance.
So
I'm just
yeah, there
trying
you
to
have
make
it. If
sure
TFC G Money talks, if TFC get 0 points in Leagues Cup and Miami gets 6, Mikey Singh has to wear that jersey next Monday.
Okay, you know it
I
could
don't even
be
know when I'm gonna
almost
get
an
it.
automatic, right? Like, and we'll talk about this later because we will be previewing the group for the League's Cup later. I did watch Atlas New York yesterday, and I'm just looking at those two teams, thinking like, I don't know how TFC beats either of these teams.
Nope.
But let's sort of jump into it, guys, into the Michael Singh notebook and go into sort of a little bit of these trade rumors, a little bit of these transfers that are coming in. We'll start with the big one that got dropped yesterday by a friend of the show, but not been on the show because he's ignored our DMs. Tom Bogert, who basically.
Oh, really? Sure,
Yeah,
hold on.
I had no
idea.
Mike's got some links.
Yeah,
He
could have just told me.
Tommy scoops on it.
This was a while ago. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But basically, dropping the news that Toronto FC are in the process of trading Matt Hedges to Austin FC for about $500,000 in GAM. Mike, obviously, you know Tom very well. Tom, when he drops something, it's pretty much happening or it's pretty much guaranteed news. But anything sort of around that you want to sort of get to before Jeff and I jump in?
Well, first off, I'm gonna get Tom next week. All right. If he's
sweet.
available,
if you can get Tom next week, awesome.
Tommy
In your
Scoops to
pink
Or a
Inter
reasonable
Miami
hand,
Messi kit.
Yeah.
Next, yeah.
Funny. I'm gonna
Maybe that's
get
the
him
only
to
way
make fun of
he'll
you.
come. Honestly, he's gonna back me there. But for the Matt Hedges trade, yeah, you know, what did I say on this podcast like 3-4 weeks ago? I literally called this happening. So it makes sense because this season, let's face it, is just a complete write-off. And when you look at TFC's roster and you look at the players that you can trade to actually convert into allocation money, and I'm guessing the allocation money that's going to be brought in is going to be for next year, not 2023. It's very slim pickings. You know, Matt Hedges, the Sean Johnsons, maybe a couple of the youngsters. So for me, this makes a lot of sense. Matt Hedges came here to win. He came here to be settled down with obviously he has a family. So my read on the situation was like a lot of the guys on the team, they were approached probably by Jason Hernandez and ownership and trying to see exactly whether or not they really wanted to stay with Toronto FC or they would be open to going elsewhere. Matt Hedges, obviously, as we know, grew up playing for Dallas, Texas area. I'm sure the club worked with him to get him back, you know, to that area where he knows very well and his family knows very well. And in return, TFC get 500,000 extra cap room to go out and really continue this rebuild. So for me, when I look at this roster, the trading of Matt Hedges signals, like I said, A, the season's a write-off, and B, I think TFC are really trying to completely rebuild this roster.
With almost no bargaining chips. I have two clarifications from you, Mikey, because it's all around Twitter. What roster relief do we get right now? This is assuming that the GAM is 2024 GAM. In this transfer window, does TFC see any roster relief whatsoever?
Yeah, for sure. Whatever his salary was comes off the books, and that would be essentially it. He was making close to $1 million in salary, so that's like 612 right off the books in cap space plus the 300,000
and none of those mid-season shenanigans. I know they like to change the values if it happens in the summer window as opposed to the winter window. None of that stuff because
it's a trade within the league. Yeah,
it's not like an incoming signing or something like that.
So they're setting about $1 million. So like I don't know if that'll be used up this transfer window. Technically, what that means is TFC can go bring in about 1.5 million worth in assets, because his 612 is actually going to be, it's still going to be 612, but when you bring in a player, only half of their cap hit counts against the cap in the summer. So incomings will only count as, 305 or 306 or whatever it is. So you can technically bring in 2 players that are charged the max senior budget charge. So I don't know if that'll actually transpire this summer, because usually when you do that, it's to make a push to kind of get in the playoffs and make a push to win. I think this team's just kind of take its time and try and get things right here, heading into next season.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
I don't know if. Well, look, I think TFC fans can complain about it to a certain extent, but I think a long term this is the right way to go. I know
100%.
the hurt right now will be immediate, and no one wants to hurt immediately, especially because we're already hurting to begin with. But you get a player that, one, we haven't been able to keep fit enough, considering how much you're paying that player. And you're getting something back, right? You're getting some asset back. And as you said, Mike, not just on this show, but on a couple of weeks ago, the idea that you can move a player and get something tangible back, both from a not just a cap salary and cap relief move, which this will partly be, but also the idea of setting yourself up for next season, which is a big need for this club, because, like you said, there's a lot of contracts. The way that they're structured for the next couple of seasons make some of these deals difficult to complete, and some of these players difficult to move going forward.
Yeah, and Hedges is 33 years old, right? I think we can all agree here, aside from maybe Richie Larea, he was our best defender this season. Definitely our best center back this season. I know Mabika has been really good, but he's nowhere close to the level I think that Matt Hedges is. And when Hedges is on the field, you look at the stats when he's on the field versus when he's off the field.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing just how big of a difference he has made to this team defensively. So, yeah, it's a big loss in that fashion, but like I said, 33 years old. He's not getting any younger. He's battling some different things, some health issues, as it hasn't been able to stay on the field as much as he would like this year. And he was signed, I think, until 2025. So it's a way to, I don't think he was a negative asset by any means. Clearly, Austin doesn't think he was a negative asset by any means, but he's also a guy that, how good is he going to be next year? How good is he going to be the year after that? There are definitely questions about his play maybe dropping off a little bit, at least. We know that the value would have really been in this year. And so, yeah, I think it's a smart time for TFC to move him. The question that I have, and I think this is the question anytime you trade a free agent 6 months after signing him to a pretty decent deal, is what kind of message does it send to other free agents? And I just want to make it clear, I like this deal, and I would do this deal if I was Jason Hernandez. But there is that other side to the coin, and the flip side to the coin of thinking maybe it deters the next Matt Hedges from coming to sign for Toronto FC if TFC are shipping a guy that they really tried to convince to come to Toronto. We know Hedges was visiting a lot of different places, was sold in the project. Does it affect the next Matt Hedges that TFC want to sign? Maybe it doesn't, but it is something at least you weigh when you make a decision like this.
Yeah, I think it also brings into sharp question the misses of Toronto FC in terms of its bigger signings over the last couple of seasons, right? It's not lost on us that, you've brought in a couple of DPs that have not lasted very long, less than a year. You think about Soteldo, you think about Salcedo, the potential of now Bernadeschi, at least one of Bernadeschi or Lorenzo Insigne maybe only lasting a year here. You get Matt Hedges, that's 6 months. We'll see about Sean Johnson. You're starting to look at a team that now is, has been selling big projects and big ideas to players. And I think that might be more the concern for future free agents and for future signings. Not so much that, okay, look, these guys have moved, but the fact that, what is the club telling me in terms of the long-term vision about this club? What is it actually, are the words matching up to the actions? Because they'll look at sort of the paper and say like, you're saying this, but I'm really getting this. or at least this is what's been happening. And that I think
Yeah.
is going to be something that players will weigh up when thinking about Toronto FC as their
It's got to
next.
be a different sales pitch this time, right?
Yeah, I think it does. I think it has to be honest. I
Yeah.
think it has to be about, look, we're bringing in a young core, and let's see how that goes. Jeff, go ahead.
Well, no, I think you're right, but I always have this issue with people saying, I don't know how to structure it, but like, of course, when you're negotiating a deal, you are speaking from a position of rose-colored glasses. Nobody goes into a deal and says this is going to suck. Like, it's always best case scenario. So I agree with you, and just circling back, I think the only person that loses in this Hedges deal is Dallas fans because he's gone to a rival, and Drew Moore, because if memory serves, wasn't he and his family renting Drew Moore's house? now Drew Moore needs to find another tenant.
Is that actually the case?
I saw it.
Drew Moore kept his house here in Toronto.
Okay,
that would
okay.
have
I mean,
been
it's
a crazy story.
probably the same guy that
I know Drew Moore's family helped them out in terms of like what is Toronto like and stuff like that when they were weighing up the decision, because Matt Hedges and Drew Moore are quite close, but not sure about that. But I mean, like, again, but I think that sort of speaks to what I was talking about, Jeff, in terms of I think for Toronto FC going forward, when approaching free agents, bigger signings, things like that, the idea of, you're right, you can't tell a prospective free agent that, hey, it's going to suck for a while, ooh, please sign, but more that just being honest and being forthright with, look, we're in a process of where we're trying to rebuild the identity of this club. You could be a part of that. Here is what we're trying to do here. Instead of like, hey, we're going to sign this guy, and therefore we're going to try to all put it together and smush it all together in a season and a half. We're going to try and win MLS Cup. That's just not realistically how teams get built now. And I think TFC is learning a harsh lesson in that, in terms of the moves they're going to have to make over the rest of this window and probably going into the winter window as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And in terms of this move, Mike, you kind of answered this question, but I will ask, does moving Hedges means other trades are in the works, or most likely will be in the work for other vets on his team, signaling like a Sean Johnson, maybe a Sigurd Rosted, dare I even say something like a Michael Bradley if somebody will take the deal? Like, is that something that TFC fans should maybe be bracing themselves for?
Absolutely. Absolutely. As I mentioned, I don't think anyone is like, can you guys just off the top of your head name a single player on this roster that is 100% untouchable for Toronto FC?
Victor Vasquez.
Honestly, the only one I can think of that might be untouchable right now based on their plays, maybe Kobe Franklin, just simply because they may find him as a player that they want to build around for a bit. But I mean, if they get an amazing offer for him, yes, of course. But
yeah, if someone's picking up the phone saying, "Hey, we'll give you $800,000 in allocation money for Kobe Franklin," you're saying, "Where do I send the offer?"
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Right.
I'll drive him myself. Yeah.
There's no one on this roster, like I said, that is completely untouchable. Maybe the one player that might be is Jaquil Marcherutti. And that's just because I think his ceiling in terms of value, it exceeds MLS. So you're looking at an outbound transfer, hopefully an outbound transfer that's at this point maybe 5 million, which is a lot less than the 20 million that they were apparently asking for just a year and a half.
Feels a lot right now.
Yeah.
Right now, but who knows what happens in a year or two, right? Jaquil is still developing, still growing, still trying to figure out exactly what position is his best position, and he's finally getting a bit of consistent minutes here under Terry Dunfield. So, I mean, we'll see exactly how it plays out. But like I said, I don't think anybody on this roster is, quite frankly, untouchable by any means. See, I would throw Sean Johnson in the untouchable mix if it wasn't for the fact that he's out of contract, not at the end of this season, but at the end of next season. So he's only signed for a year and a half more. So considering that, by all means, he's the first guy I'm calling teams and saying, hey, do you need a goalkeeper? We have a pretty dang good one if you're willing to, fork up some allocation money for the future. So I think TFC fans should brace for more moves. And I think
impact,
already Jason Hernandez has shown that he's willing to do what it takes to rebuild this roster.
Absolutely. All right. Let's move on to potential inbound signing in Cassius Malulia. Latest updates, Waking the Red, and SABC News in South Africa, basically saying that he said his goodbyes to Mamelodi Stars. He's said goodbye to a lot of people in South Africa. The team in South Africa seems to be confirming that this deal is done and he's heading to Toronto. Obviously, nothing from an MLS side or from, a Toronto FC perspective, but this seems like it's mostly done or in the bag. Again, Mike, I don't know if you have any updates there, but it seems like this is heading towards us getting a new winger in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I can say that it is very, very, very close to being done. I wouldn't say it's official yet, but very, very close to being done. Touched on him a little bit in last week's podcast, but what else I can say is this is a player that TFC have been scouting for a long time, for at least like the past several months. I think he's a guy that actually Bob Bradley would have identified as a potential young incoming signing, and based on the way that he's developed, let's say in South Africa, and based on the type of profile player TFC are looking for, he checks a lot of boxes for this team. So yeah, I do expect him. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the coming days where it gets officially announced that he is a new Toronto FC signing. So, one incoming signing throughout all these outgoing signings that TFC fans can look forward to. He'll be a breath of fresh air because he'll just provide something that's so different, I think, to Toronto FC.
Yeah, I got a chance to sort of read more about him and see some, granted they're highlights. So obviously it's always showing off the best of a player and not necessarily all of the aspects of a player. But I mean, a winger, like you said last week, is probably more accurate in terms of the way he plays. Sometimes he's playing as sort of the second in a strike pairing where he's maybe playing just underneath and maybe to the left or to the right of a central striker. But generally speaking, like he's got pace, he's tricky, he will get by people, and can score goals. He has an eye for goal. 15 goals last season in the South African Premier League. So from that perspective, that's a positive. Now, obviously, we'll have to see time to adapt in North America, not just on a pitch, but just in life in general. It's a lot for a 22-year-old to be taking in, who has never left home before. But at least this is a breath of fresh air, the kind of signings that I think some TFC fans, not all, but some TFC fans have kind of been looking for.
Yeah, it's complete polar opposite, right, to what has been the club's, I guess, transfers philosophy the last 2 years, which is bring in more well-known, established players into Toronto FC to try and help them win trophies. Now they're going after guys who, for the most part, are unknown to North American soccer fans, and it can go well or it can go not so well. So TFC scouting department, we'll see. This one will be a good measuring stick to kind of see exactly where they are in terms of evaluating players that other people may not know.
And guys, I'll ask you both, how comfortable are you with sort of TFC scouting? I think we've, like you said, Mike, we've gone from this sort of, or at least like we're going to be going through this change of signing proven or at least experienced, mainly European or within MLS players, and now looking at sort of raw talents in markets that traditionally have not been tapped by MLS in the past, or are just starting to get tapped by MLS at this point. So how confident are you guys feeling in terms of TFC's ability to scout those players and bring in guys who can succeed at this level?
It's tough to say. We haven't really seen it for a long time, right? And the guys that were brought in, that might have been unknown to TFC fans this year in terms of, Sigurd Rosted and Raul Petretta, guys who, are more well-known overseas, but again, to North American soccer fans, were pretty unknown. haven't been the greatest, right? So where's my confidence level at? It's more of a wait and see approach. Let's see how this new, I guess, era, let's call it, under Jason Hernandez, how they proceed and how it goes, right? Because we just, like I said, we just haven't seen it for so long.
Yeah, yeah. I have cautious optimism. Cautious optimism because it is such a need for this team to get quicker. You know, and even if that's the only thing on the scouts notepad, quick. It looks like we're getting somebody that actually has some pace. So yeah, cautiously optimistic, and it will be nice to see a fresh faced kid trying to prove themselves as opposed to what we've been suffering through on the opposite end of the spectrum. You know, it is a complete about face. It's a complete 180. You know, that's not course correction. That's panicking. So it's hard to be too optimistic because it's not coming from a good place. It's a reactionary move. But, you know, let's hope against hope.
I do like that point where he's going to be hungry to prove something in Major League Soccer, because when you look at some of the reaction from people who, some fans and other people who are just reacting to the news in South Africa, they're all so proud of this
So
kid
proud of
going
him. They love this kid. Yeah.
overseas.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like, he's gonna step onto the pitch and really not take anything for granted. Whereas, you know, just as an example, you have Insigne and Bernadeschi who step on the pitch and they expect things to just go well because they're just simply on the pitch. Whereas this guy, you know, the work rate and the effort is going to be there, because I think he still has a lot to prove, whereas those guys had really nothing to prove.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to me that you both your comments are very much on the, you know, cautiously optimistic slash, I don't know, kind of wavelength, because we kind of went through this with the Ali Curtis, sort of Chris Armas era,
Mm.
not quite to the same extent, obviously, because there were still a lot of leftovers from the Greg Vanny era, but, you know, kind of started to try to do a little bit of this. I don't know if fan reaction was mixed at the time, you know, from that perspective, but obviously it didn't go well. I don't know if that was so much on the players as it was
Mm.
on sort of the club and the way it was set up, and Chris Armas and Ali Curtis.
What players
So,
are you referring to? Like the Erickson
Yeah.
Gallardos?
yeah, the Gallardos, the Sateldos, obviously. I mean, like you even look at the Schaffelbergs. Like Schaffelberg really wasn't an academy player; it was a signing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he should have been drafted, but they just signed him before he went into the draft. And again, mixed bag in terms of the results. I think Schaffelberg, in the end, proven to be a solid MLS player. Erickson Gallardo and Jefferson Soteldo obviously didn't work out. Again, part of me is like, look, that's partly on the player to a certain extent, especially
Thank you.
one player's case compared to the other. But on the other side of it is, did TFC again set them up for success? Did they put them in a position where they could actually show the best of themselves at the club? That's just a question I have. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that. Jeff, go ahead.
I do. Because we've been avoiding a rebuild. We've called these rebuilds, but they've been piecemeal every damn time. I mean, the issue with the Armas thing was, how can you take a possession-based Greg Vanny team with minimal personnel changeover that are already old, that you're rolling with again, and turn them into ultra Red Bulls? I mean, that was the dumbest idea in the world. But, you know, not I don't want to pollute the waters here. Let's just go back to, you know, the nuggets that Mikey was giving us, how basically, you know, Bob Bradley was given the keys to the car and then kneecapped by 2 signings. And then later on, the entire thesis statement changed. It was like, oh yeah, we were going to give you this amount of time, but now you need to do it in this truncated amount of time. We need a rebuild, a proper rebuild. And that's why, you know, these questions about, it didn't work because we were trying to do everything at the same time. We were trying to fix the boat while we were in the open ocean. You need to go to a dry dock, guys. You can't, you know, it's just a Band-Aid solution. So my hope is that now, you know, rock bottom, it is about this proper rebuild. and we won't have to ask these questions about if X then Y, if Y then Z. It'll be a lot less complicated, and it still will be complicated because we're sitting on a ton of bad deals that, you know, every time we do this rebuild, it's like, well, we can't do it yet because this guy's got so many years on their contract, Iowa Canola, whatever the case may be, you know. So within reason, let's try an actual rebuild as opposed to whatever the hell we've been doing and calling it a rebuild.
Yeah, no arguments from me, man. No arguments from
It's
me.
gonna suck. It's gonna suck. I mean, let's be honest. It's gonna
But this
suck.
is MLS, man. There's teams that go and do these kind of rebuilds where they go a little bit younger, and all of a sudden you just get a team that you just weren't expecting. Just catch a little fire.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to happen in Toronto FC's case, but it's MLS. It has happened before.
FC Cincinnati, St. Louis City.
They were a little bit more systematic in the way they built.
Sure,
a little bit.
You're right, and let's try that now.
Fair enough. Okay,
Yeah.
Let's move on to Bernadeschi here. A lot of things have been coming out in the last week since we last talked about this. Bologna is still in the picture. Apparently now it's not a sale; it is a loan that they would consider. If this would be, he's actually gone on and done an interview on Sky Italia apparently today or yesterday.
What? Oh, I can't wait to watch that.
Yeah, I do have some notes. I had a friend of mine who knows Italian quite well, sort of translate.
Hit us.
But before I get into that,
okay,
you know, just in terms of this potentially being a loan move and not necessarily a permanent deal, do you think that actually helps with this, again, this narrative of a rebuild, right? If we're rebuilding, does it make sense to loan out Federico Bernadeschi for him to come back because no one else in Serie A will pay that salary?
Absolutely not. I mean, they're considering taking him off our hands for a loan. Thanks, guys. How thoughtful.
It doesn't matter. Loan, sell. Obviously, you prefer to sell him if TFC have decided they want to move on from him. But if you loan him out, and as long as you're not retaining salary, you're not eating salary on it, then I really don't see why not, aside from the fact that maybe you're down the line, you could run into this scenario that Atlanta United had found themselves in, where a player comes back and now you have one too many DPs. But then, you know, that's also, it's Federico Bernadeschi. It's a situation that's solvable. Maybe at that point down the road, you have to eat some money, and then it's less money, right, than it would have been beforehand. But like I said, the latest I can say on the Federico Bernadeschi stuff is, as we know, Bernadeschi wants to, or as I've reported, I guess, Bernadeschi wants to move on from Toronto FC. TFC ideally would like to make that happen. However, it has to be under their terms. So that's kind of what the holdup is on a potential deal there. I still think Bernadeschi is, like I think I said this last week, I still think he's going to be professional. I still think he's going to be training, and he's still going to be available for games until they do find a move for him. But I do believe still that it's heading down the path where Bernadeschi will eventually get his move away from Toronto FC. We'll see if it's a loan. We'll see if it's a permanent transfer. I did say last week that other clubs are also available or are also interested in Bernadeschi beside just Bologna. So we'll see. Their interest has now been made public. Yeah, we'll see how this one plays out. It's going to be an interesting one to watch these next couple of days, potentially weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. So to this interview that Federico Bernadeschi did with Sky Italia, it's on Gianluca Di Marizo's Twitter account. If you want to take a look at it, if somebody speaks Italian and wants to translate and give maybe a better accounting of this, you can let me know. But this is what I have. Basically, the highlights here are that, look, Federico said he's flattered by the interest in him from other Serie A clubs, but he hasn't given any hints of wanting to go back to TFC. That's his words. He'll evaluate any and all offers with Toronto FC and be respectful to the club. He also says that he misses Italy, but that's a normal thing, and that's not necessarily a like I hate here and I want to leave kind of thing. He didn't. So basically, that's sort of the main points of that interview. I'm sure somebody will find it and give more of a clearer translation of
So
what he said.
just to confirm, he's saying that he's open to a move away from Toronto FC.
Yes, I
Is
mean
that
it's
what I
not
heard?
really refuting what's been necessarily put out there. It's just
Okay.
that he said he didn't essentially trying to say that he didn't necessarily go to the club and say, "Please move me. I'm unhappy here."
The one thing the one thing I will
That's what he
caution
said.
about Bernadeschi is, and I remember this, is
Yeah.
like 2 days before his announcement to Toronto FC, I remember him posting on his Instagram that no decision had been made. Everything that people are reading is false. I'm like, I reported 2 weeks before you joined Toronto FC that you were joining Toronto FC, and I know for a fact that the deal was done at that point and the decision was made at that point. So just be cautious of what you hear
Hey,
coming
I'm
out of
saying
him in
pinch of
public
salt,
interviews.
obviously. Pinch of salt, but yes. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah. Oh no! If I say anything, I'll be in trouble. So let's just...
if I talk, I am trouble.
I'm in
yeah,
trouble.
taking Jose Mourinho's playbook, I like it.
Mhm.
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, I think Mike, you're right. I think Jeff and I sort of nodded last week. I think this is he doesn't play for TFC again.
You don't think he plays on Wednesday?
Is he in training?
He's been in training.
I think he's in training.
Okay.
I would be surprised if he plays. Yeah, I'll put it at that. I'll be surprised if he plays.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see exactly how that plays out. It's interesting because it's definitely something Terry Dunfield has to work through, not just with Bernadeschi. I think maybe a couple other players on that roster too. Speaking of Terry Dunfield, it does. Let me word this carefully. So obviously, the Toronto FC coaching search has been a really hot topic for this team. As I mentioned last week, they've interviewed a lot of local candidates. Some candidates that you can probably guess, and some other candidates that may surprise you, and candidates that also, I would add, that would be familiar to the club and to its fans. I also get the sense, and one of the things that I've been told is that it's a possibility that Terry Dunfield gets the rest of the season as TFC head coach because Bill Manning's ideal candidate may not be available until the end of the season.
Oh my God, is it Ben Olsen? Please tell me it's not Ben Olsen.
No, he's in Houston, man. He's wrapped up in Houston.
Yeah. So, and even then, even at the end of the season, there's no guarantee that the candidate that Bill Manning wants would be able to join TFC. So that's what I'll say there. So there is a possibility that Terry Dunfield ends up coaching out the rest of the season here in Toronto as they go through this rebuild.
That makes sense to me. That makes sense. Like in the sense that I don't think there's any look. If you're writing off the rest of the season, there is no rush to be hiring a manager right now, right?
Zero.
You know? Like I don't think there needs to be a rush at installing somebody right now, unless again the perfect candidate falls in your lap at the moment, and I would highly doubt that would be the case right now. I'm intrigued, Mike, by what you're saying by local candidates. I'm not asking you to name names or anything like that, but clearly that means probably some coaches that
I chose very specifically.
Yes.
And I think he's doing shenanigans. I think he expects us all to think it's the Dickios and the Codwells when it's the Caleb Porters and the Ben Olsen and the Peter Vermeeses of the world.
Well, I mean,
because they're local.
My question was more around if you're saying local candidates, are you talking the CPL variety? Would they have gone down that route to have that conversation?
Again, local. I'll clarify local. Local meaning in
domestic.
I would say local as Canadian. Canadian would be local, but also beyond. I'll say Canadian, then local also people that would be known to the club local. So not necessarily they have to be from Toronto, but again, familiar with the club and
I just got
fans to be
Carl
familiar with.
Robinson hives. I just got Robo hives, big time. But yeah,
Yeah, but like I said, even those candidates, I don't think that's TFC's first choice after those interviews. I think their first choice would be someone, like I said, that would Bill Manning would have to wait until the end of the season. Let's see.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough.
yeah.
Unless Mike, you have anything else you wanted to add to the notebook, I think we shall close the notebook for this week.
I gotta make an
Yeah,
animation
I
for
think
us.
that's fine
Yeah.
for the rest of this.
All right, notebook closed. We will reopen
I'm
it.
totally
next week.
making an animation for us. It's
Go
gonna be
for it,
great.
Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll close the notebook for this week, and we'll be back next week with some more tidbits on what's going on in Toronto FC land.
Danny Kubermans is our next coach.
Yeah. Oh man, that'd be amazing. I think he still lives here. No, he lives in the Netherlands, but he like comes here a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up being like an assistant with Terry, because him and Terry are tight.
There's no way. There's no way.
I know. Just joking. Before somebody runs off and says,
the memes. I want it just for the memes. Honestly, I do. That would be fantastic.
All right, guys. Leagues Cup. Let's talk about it a little bit. Really quickly, in case you don't know what the hell this is, which, to be perfectly honest, I will not blame you if you didn't know. This is a separate cup tournament, which basically pits MLS against Liga MX. All clubs in MLS and all Liga MX clubs are playing in this tournament. It doesn't matter about their standing. This is a separate tournament, so this is not Champions League. It is a separate competition. Essentially, it's like a World Cup style tournament where the teams are placed into groups. And each of the groups are sort of regional, East, West, South, Central. Then there will be knockout rounds going through. And then obviously what's the big sort of at stake here, aside from winning obviously a cup, is that the top three teams will receive an automatic bid to the Champions Cup, formerly known as Champions League, because yes, they have changed the name of that as well. And then obviously with the opportunity to go to the Club World Cup should they win it. So that is, the long and short of what the Leagues Cup is. Toronto FC will start in the Leagues Cup this Wednesday against NYCFC. They are in a group with NYCFC, obviously, and Atlas from Mexico, the 2022 Clausura champions, and I believe the 2021 Apertura champions, if I'm not wrong.
They're a good team.
So they are a very good team. They actually, NYCFC and Atlas played last night in New York, in Queens, with Atlas winning 1-0. I watched quite a bit of that game. And like I said at the top of the show, I mean, it's a cup competition. Anything could happen. I just, right now, the way TFC are playing, I don't see how they beat either one of these sides at the moment. Because actually, NYCFC for long stretches of the game looked good. Actually did score a tying goal, finished 1-0, but did score a tying goal, but it was called offside. And then we got maybe the weirdest post from Atlas today, which is just, we'll get into that in a second, but it was just, if you haven't seen it yet, it is somebody's getting fired, put it that way.
Oh yeah.
Someone's getting fired. But I mean, guys, new tournament, a new opportunity. I know we've hated on the tournament in previous shows, but let's put that aside for a second. It is here. How are you feeling about the Leagues Cup and TFC's potential chances in said cup?
Play some games, kick some balls, see what happens. I just hope everybody's having fun out there.
Oh, wow. Ringing endorsement.
Yeah. No, I mean it's been fun. It's been fun to watch. Obviously, the entire idea of this thing makes me insane. We'll see how it goes. Watching it has been lots of frustration because Apple can't figure out how to mix sound in a live environment. But yeah. I mean, do you have any expectations, goals?
I think TFC are going to qualify out of the group. I do.
Wow.
I mean, 2 out of 3 teams qualify, so it's just one team that doesn't qualify. And New York City FC, they're also a team that, yeah, they played decent last night. They had really kept possession really well. It's not at Yankee Stadium, notably. It's at Citi Field.
Yeah.
So, like I know TFC haven't won a a road game in a year, but against New York City FC, I don't know. A point is definitely within reach. And then returning home against Atlas, who, yeah, they're a decent side. There were
Now, they're not
spells
the team that
where
won the Clausura, because that
they're
a lot of the
not.
guys that were on that team have been sold off.
Yeah, they got gutted. Yeah.
They're not. Yeah, so they're not, like, they've started off this campaign decently in Liga MX, but still they're not like a Tigres or Club America. They're not one of those teams. So at home at BMO Field, I think again points are in the balance. So I wouldn't be surprised if TFC find a way to, if they win one of their matches, essentially they could be in.
They qualify.
Right?
Yeah.
And mentally, as we talked about, this is a good change of pace for a team that was in a really dreadful drought in the league. By the way, I think it's now that we're actually here, I think it's so ridiculous that we're taking a month and a half off in the middle of the Major League Soccer season to get this tournament in, because, man, there's teams that have momentum. There's teams that actually have put in months of work to build their position and build, like I said, that momentum into the Major League Soccer season. Then you take a month and a half off to play a tournament in which some teams might only get 2 matches in that month and a half. It's such a big disruption to the league, and I wonder if it'll affect the standings whatsoever. I might not.
I think there will be impacts to this. I think teams that
injuries,
are flying high
100%. Yeah.
Beyond injuries, I just think like form, right? Like just to say you're a team that's top of the East or West, and let's just even say you get out of your group stage but lose your first knockout game. You're not playing games for a couple of weeks, right? Like you're out for a while, and that can kill momentum really, really quickly for a team. Same conversely, I'm not saying this is going to happen for TFC, but you could be a team that's really down, and all of a sudden you go on a bit of a cup run, you play some games, you get some good vibes, and the next thing you know, you hit a team that's been off for a couple of weeks, or a couple of teams right after the break that have been off for a couple of weeks. And next thing you know, you're gaining points all of a sudden, out of nowhere.
Easy there.
I'm not saying this is TFC. I'm just saying, like, there's,
Let's play a game. What team do you think will be affected the most by the month and a half off? Let's say affected in a negative way. What team do you think will see the biggest drop off after?
I'd have to look at the groups. I actually haven't done it.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because so far out of the games, the MLS clubs seem to be taking this really seriously. Like, they're actually playing full 11s and things like that. Where some of them for some of the Mexican teams are playing like youth kids. There's some kids going out there with like 100s and 200s on the back of their jerseys, right? So like they're clearly academy players. But MLS teams are taking this seriously, and I get it. Why, right? It's opportunity to go to Champions League without having to worry about your standings in the league. If there's a team that I think could potentially fall off if they try to go far in this, could be St. Louis. I could see a St. Louis.
I agree.
I could see a St. Louis. Like, I don't think they'll fall out of a playoff spot or anything like that, but it's funny. One of the things that hasn't been talked about a lot in MLS is the form of LAFC after the Champions League run, and the fact that, yes, of course, they're still up there in the Western standings, but they haven't looked like LAFC that we've come to know. And St. Louis leads the West, and in a lot of ways, I think that could impact a fairly new squad who's flying high in MLS, a lot of some momentum. And then kind of, another team that I think that it could impact positively, oddly enough, I think is Vancouver. I actually think this could really benefit Vancouver. If anybody didn't see, they went into a long shootout with Club Leon on Friday night. I believe they played Friday night, and it went to a long shootout. I believe they lost that shootout. If somebody
They did,
correct me,
yeah.
But I think they played really well in that game, and I think that's a team that could be, they're kind of hovering around a playoff spot. That could actually get a big boost from this tournament and sort of get some confidence and go on a run. So my two teams, both are in the West. It would be St. Louis and Vancouver.
I like those shots. I have.
See,
Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
Well, I think the thing with St. Louis is that it's a brand new team, so they don't have the muscle memory of doing an MLS season before doing this weirdo season where everything stops, right? So they may be insulated from it because they don't have anything to compare it against. I actually think Cincy has the most to lose. I really do, because they're on a maddening clip right now, and anything that knocks them off that perch, and it doesn't even matter about results. It just matters about downtime and then changing the routine. Like, they're on a great clip right now, and as you were saying, now we're throwing all of that to the apple cart. So results be damned. I just think the change in routine is going to be a problem for FC Cincy.
I have the New England Revolution as the team to watch, as potential second half, quote unquote, second half, final third drop offs. Yeah, I just think they're a bit of they're not necessarily really old, but they have some older players out there. Obviously, they're going to be playing some games on turf. And if they make a deep run, which they're definitely capable of, I could see that affecting kind of the latter half of this season. Also, I think they've overperformed slightly as well throughout the first half of this year, too. So, yeah, we'll see exactly what happens with New England. Obviously, the team that I think will benefit the most from this is Inter Miami. They get a period of time here where they can integrate Messi, Busquets, Jordi Alba, and their new players into the mix. So for me, it's just extra, in a way, just extra practice here for them as they really look forward to an important final third of their season, because not only do they have the league in which they're hoping to make a run for and make the playoffs, they also have the US Open Cup, which they're in the semifinals for already. So it's going to be really important for them to get going, and I think they're going to use the Leagues Cup in that fashion. So I think those are two teams I'm watching for to potentially rise and potentially fall.
Interesting. And to sort of circle it back to TFC, what you think, Mike, that they can get out of the group? Jeff, what do you think should be TFC's realistic? What are you trying to get out of this tournament? What ideally do you get out of playing this tournament for TFC?
Like a baby Inter Miami kind of thing where we can blood some new players, try out some new things. To be honest, I mean, why play games? We can do the same thing in training. I'm not saying they punt it, but I am saying it's not something, this is not the year to be going for silverware. And our club suffers too often from trying to do two opposite things at the same time. And this is yet another example of that. So, maybe don't worry about it and go to Chuck E. Cheese instead and do some team building exercises. I just, I think I said it before. I just hope everybody has some fun out there. But to me, the validity of pushing for this tournament, because we're not winning it. And if we get out of the group, we're not winning it. So to me, do as much so that you can't be caught punting it as humanly possible. But
yeah, see,
I
disagree.
Lowercase p, punt it. Yeah.
I say that this is the one stretch of games that you can actually be able to promote to your team and really sell your team on, because they really don't have anything left to play for besides their jobs. Right. So this is the one individual tournament, because let's get real, this team's not going to make the playoffs barring a dramatic turnaround. And I think they've all know that by now. They're selling off players. So it's one of those things where you can kind of just go to your players and be like, this is essentially our playoffs. So go out there and play every game like it's the final game of the season, because essentially I think it is. So, yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, like I agree with you, Mike, from that perspective. I just, again, I don't know where the goals are coming from. At the end of the day, his team hasn't scored goals in 5 games. I don't know where the goals come from. And last time I checked, you got to score goals to win games here. Well, I mean, I guess they, in theory, could get points by drawing 0-0 and going to penalties, because you can do that in this cup tournament. But it's we'll see.
TFC penalties. You know how good we are at that.
Yeah. Let's depend on that. TFC and penalties.
Exactly. Right. So, like, it's to me. I agree. I think it's going out there and running some of the new players out and getting them a feel to what's expected of them down the stretch. Look, maybe that's a silver lining in season where you get out of the group. Hey, great. And then you see what lies.
We got worked by Toluca. Like, I don't know if that's.
I don't know what the bracket is in terms of who we would have to play next. It most likely will be a Liga MX team, though this tournament is set up for an MLS team to win it. Like, all the games are in MLS venues.
It's a road game for every Liga.
Basically, every Mexican. Yeah, they're all playing road games. None of the games are in Mexico. So, right now, I believe Club Leon is trapped in Vancouver because their flight got canceled.
They're sleeping on they're doing what we all do. They're sleeping on the floor. It's great.
It's great, and they have to play LA Galaxy tomorrow too, which is crazy. Quickly before we get
they got to play the swashbuckling amazing LA Galaxy. Question from the chat.
Go for it.
Was Insigne at training?
I haven't been at training. It hasn't been open to media.
Ooh,
so I don't know if he. I think he was at training. I think from some of the social media pictures that they published, he was at training. But what that means in terms of his availability, I have no idea.
Oh, they're keeping him closed for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason. Generally, they keep training closed that long to the public. Okay, just really quickly before we get into the burning question. Atlas tweeted the most ridiculous thing. I won't say every word of this tweet is just the most ridiculous. Long story short, go find it on Twitter, unless they've taken it down. But somebody's
it's still there.
It's still there. That's crazy. Basically, look, at the end of the day, they were just not disputing, but I guess the offside call that disallowed NYCFC's goal, which, yes, it was correctly deemed offside. Nobody's arguing this. But I guess a lot of people were, and Atlas is whoever is doing their social media, whoever their Giacometti is. They
former social media,
former. Long story short, they quoted the Nazis. And
they compared a soccer refereeing decision.
Compared a soccer refereeing decision to the Nazis. You can take a look at the tweet and see. It is the most ridiculous tweet I've ever seen.
Twitter, fellas. It's so good now.
I know. Yeah, exactly. And that's the team we're playing on next Sunday. So keep that in mind. But let's move on to the burning question presented by Next Door.
Let's do it.
Nextdoor is the official community app of Toronto FC. It's also where you connect with the people, local businesses in your neighborhood. We'll be posting the burning question each week on Nextdoor's TFC fan group a day before we post it on our socials. So if you want to grab it early, join the conversation, grab show clips, things we're starting to put up there in the Toronto FC fan group. Download the app wherever you can download an app, or go to nextdoor.ca. This week, we asked you, are you looking forward to TFC's run in the 2023 Leagues Cup? And all of you, without a fault, answered in the most hilarious way possible by not answering the question, which is great. So I am going to read off a few here. But most of you are basically like, bin this. This is terrible. But I will read out a few. So Todd on the Toronto FC fan group Says, really couldn't give a darn, but it would be great if they did somehow make a run. He did ask an additional question to that, but that's okay because, long story short, Inter Miami's not playing here for the rest of the year. Rob on Twitter just says, chances are low that Toronto FC will make it out of the group. The tournament itself has been great to watch. Teams are taking it seriously, and every day has been entertaining so far, which is true. Like as much as we're banning it, MLS teams are really taking this seriously. So that has been fun. Chris also says, no, I have no interest in the glorified friendly tournament that will probably be gone in a year or two. Chris, I hate to tell you this thing ain't going anywhere. They're making a lot of money on it. I don't think League Cup's going anywhere. There's just too much money involved. Dan also just writes in, I'm absolutely looking forward to Toronto FC's 2025 Leagues Cup push, led by head coach X and our amazing DPs. Insert names here. So, look, I think Rose Gallery humor is coming out here in a lot of the comments. I think it does speak to not just the tournament in general, but I think right now there is a tired sense of, God, we're just more games and just it's not going well. There's a lot of that feeling I'm getting on a lot of the responses here.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, we've hit that point in the season where Jason Hernandez knows. I think TFC fans know, and it's really embarrassingly early to be saying this, but it's a write-off. And quite frankly,
yeah, it's over.
I think people have lost the buzz, and TFC have lost the buzz of match days coming up. It's just not the same level of excitement.
Isn't that crazy? Like, consider where we were a year ago, right? Like, if we went back to our archives and look, we probably recorded the show within a couple of days of today, last year. And the absolute buzz of the town, obviously with the Italians coming in and Mark Anthony K was coming in. Oh, by the way, there might be some crazy rumor that you probably dropped it on the show, Mike, that Richie Larea was potentially coming back to TFC. Like the switch, the dichotomy in a year is truly incredible. Like, I don't know if and I've watched a lot of MLS over the last, call it 15, 16 years. I can't remember a year where a team went for it so big, collapsed so badly, and a year later, no one wants to talk about that team other than, oh my God, look how badly they screwed this up. Like, can you think of one? I can't think of one.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't have the same heft because this is happening to us, and we've lived through it in a really profound way. No, I can't.
Maybe previous Inter Miami teams that had the 4 DPs.
Yeah, but even then, like, I don't know if it was like, would somebody like, did Rodolfo Pizarro really move the needle that way? Like MLS nerds know him, but like,
yeah, like Higuain did. And you had Blaise Matuidi that was on that squad too.
Oh yeah,
illegally paid Blaise Matuidi.
Exactly.
Real estate maven Blaise Matuidi.
They brought in some like former English Premier League players as well that weren't DPs as well on that side. Like it was for at least at that point in time, that standard, it was a star-studded Miami team that fell well short of expectations. That's probably one of the closest comparisons, just off the top of my head, that you can draw. Bloody big deal. Again, might be up there in terms of comparisons, but no, Mike, I'm with you. Like I've said it in the past, and I'll reiterate it. This is by far the most disappointing season in Toronto FC history. I don't even think it's close.
Testify. It's not even close.
Like 2012 was bad, and I lived through it. We, like a lot of us, lived through 2012. That was humiliating beyond belief. This is worse because we knew 2012 would be bad. Well, we knew 2012 would be bad. Like we knew that team was not going to be good. You could look at that team and objectively know that team was not going to be any good. Yeah. I don't think anybody thought they'd lose 9 in a row to start the season, but they knew they were going to be bad.
There wasn't a significant drop off though. You know what I mean?
No.
Like TFC had it in a way figured out. 4 MLS Cup finals or 3 MLS Cup finals in 4 years. The next year you had Supporters Shield runner-ups, could have been Supporters Shield champion. And then it's been drop off after drop off after drop off. The last 3 seasons have been so bad that it's taken away all of the good work that you've built up to this point. And quite frankly, you ask probably random fans around the league who's probably the biggest laughing stock in Major League Soccer right now. It's hard to say it's not Toronto FC based on the amount of money that they've invested into the squad and the expectations.
The only one that would be close
and just how messy it is.
Yeah,
maybe.
Galaxy might be the
great
only other one,
which is ironic.
Yeah. I mean, that might be the closest, and it is crazy to me that we've got to that stage. And we've talked about this before, so I don't think we need to rehash all of that. But this is why I'm not as hyped about the Leagues Cup, because I don't like. Let's just say TFC go on a magical run, right? Let's just say they go on a magical run. They get to a Leagues Cup final. Am I excited that they've got to a League Cup final? Am I excited that they might lift Leagues Cup? I like Modicrum would be like
all of a sudden Leagues Cup turns into the MLS Cup final.
Well, for TFC, for a lot of TFC fans, sure, they'll go to Leagues Cup final. I'm going if they made a League Cup final. Of course, I'm going to go. But am I going to be like, oh, this is amazing, everything's all like, no. We know this is not solved. We know this was they caught a little lightning in a bottle in a cup tournament.
Yeah, exactly.
And we know that there are deeper lying rot there. And this is just another thing that papers that over, right? Or attempts to paper that over. The difference is I don't think it does this time, because I think a lot of fans have become wise to what is happening, and is wise to the fact that like this team is not in any way a shape to compete at any realistic level right now. No. I don't even think a Canadian championship right now is realistic for this club.
We've seen it. We've seen what they've done in the Canadian championship.
Yeah,
they're not competitive.
I just don't think it is right now. Look, you'll always be one of the top 3 teams to be considered, because the MLS clubs will be. But I think the CPL, from that perspective, is closing the gap a lot quicker than people were willing to admit. And from that perspective, I just don't see. This is why Leagues Cup does not fill me with a lot of joy, because it's a competition where if TFC do poorly, then crap. It's another 2 games where they either don't score a goal or don't play well, and we're just continuing on this cycle. Or if it becomes a tournament where they do make a run and they do well, then some people are going to start thinking like, oh, maybe they figured it out. Maybe they've got it. Maybe
2019 again.
The right guy. And in the end of the day, we know that is not it. That is not it. It is just a papering over of what's going on, and that kind of is the apprehension I have around Leagues Cup, if that all makes sense.
I agree 100%. I don't want another 2019. We're so close to figuring it out. We're so close to the realization we have to make huge moves and be patient for that time, the time that it's going to take. And if Leagues Cup sets us back again, I hate Leagues Cup even more, because but seriously, so because it again, it's another 2019, and like Mike said, I couldn't agree with you more. I would rather just be done with it, so we can get on with rebuilding this squad into something that can make us all happy for longer.
You guys are depressing.
2 weeks. I know.
You guys are depressing, man.
Your vibes all the time, Mike. It's okay.
I want a Leagues Cup title, and I want to go to the Champions League next season. I think that'll only be beneficial to this team.
Can't front on that.
I just want to make sure that is complete sarcasm. Because the Champions League run next season will definitely be exactly what this team needs, starting games in February.
Go down to Costa Rica, get slapped. I just love the fact, I'm just reading in the comments here really before we leave. Keith Sweat just asks why didn't we keep Bob Bradley?
I'm ignoring Keith Sweat's comment.
I just the fact that his name is Keith Sweat. I'm just like, Keith Sweat listens to our podcast. That's amazing. For those who don't know Keith Sweat, I'm sure Keith is out there being like, man, I've heard this a million times. This asshole. No, but Keith Sweat, 90s R&B legend. Go. I don't know. Spotify Keith Sweat. One song, but you don't need to do it.
Yeah,
all
the
right,
first one on the Spotify playlist.
Yeah, exactly. Just do that one. Do the most popular one, and you've got the idea of what
you got it.
It's
Yeah.
all about. All right, let's wrap up the show, guys. Thank you for listening to another episode of Toronto Till I Die. We'll be back next week, basically reviewing how TFC is done in the Leagues Cup. Either they're going on a run, they're going streaking, or it was 2 games and they lost 2 more games. Big favor to ask. We're trying to grow the membership and conversations in the Toronto FC fan group on Nextdoor. We've already got a really nice response since we started asking you guys to do this. So let's keep it up. It's amazing. You're awesome at doing that. So if you already have Nextdoor, just search Toronto FC fan group and join. If you don't, download the app. As I mentioned before, go to nextdoor.ca and do that. For Michael Singh, for Jeffrey P. Nesker, I'm Mike Newell. See you all next week. Cheers, everybody.
And wait, and baby, I'm TFC till I die.